Good morning. Molly, nice group, nice energy, wonderful. I'm always pleased to be able to introduce one of our near-death experiencer speakers, and she's a native Virginian that we have with us today, and grew up here, then went on to chiropractic school, doctor of chiropractic medicine, and trust me, any medical doctorate degree doesn't come easy. And as I'm in my 4th of 6 years, and one who had a near-death experience that changed her life. She has a wonderful story. She heals. She's changed her mission from her chiropractic medicine to her new mission of healing and being with people and writing a new book. She's a dynamic, exciting lady, Dr. Mary Helen Hensley.
He also forgot to mention that I was a preacher's daughter, so the dot of 12 means something very much to me. I won't make it too long, Neil, I promise. I am so excited to be here, and I cannot tell you, just coming into a space like this, that the atmosphere that you all have created collectively as a group and a family, as an outsider coming in, please let me just acknowledge that. That's just such a great achievement. It's so special. Couple that with a supermoon and all the people I met yesterday, and I'm like shaking out of my body here. I'm just, again, so grateful, so excited to be here. And it was funny, I was thinking as I walked in the door, what am I going to say? Because I'm used to talking for very long periods of time, and 30 minutes I can kind of introduce myself and say my name. So what could I say to you that would be effective and powerful and hopefully inspirational to you? And it was funny because something happened to me on the way in the door. On the way into the door, something happened. And I ran into one of your pastors, David Solomon, and I had an interesting experience as I entered the doorway. In the little alcove there's some pictures. And I walked in and I went, I met that man yesterday. And Gary went, no you didn't. And I went, yes I did. And he goes, he's not with us anymore. And I went, see you. Yes he is. And this would be a quite regular occurrence in my life from the time I was a child. And it's very interesting recently, as my children begin to grow and start to express their gifts, something that's been happening to us a lot lately is people are coming in the flesh. There's one thing about seeing someone in a spiritual sense and seeing the energy or the light or having a mental impression of somebody coming back to visit. We've been having a lot of experiences lately where they're coming in the body. I'm like, she was wearing shoes, she had on a t-shirt. I'm serious now. And this happened to me yesterday, and I met this man. He walked up to me, he hugged me, and he said thank you. And he thanked me for today. Now I understand why. I got it, dude. I'm on it. But what was really interesting when I then met David was now I realize why I do what I do. I have dedicated my life to this. This is me. This is what I agreed to come back. And when people go, are you taking it a little bit too seriously? I died and agreed to come back and do this. Yes, I take it seriously. But I take it seriously with humor. And David said something, and he introduced and he was telling me a little bit about himself, and I went, this is it. This is why I had that experience and why I am here. Because he and I began to speak about his own process that's going on and what he's facing. And we were talking about death and passing like my toast I ate this morning with butter and jam. And I went, this is what it's all about. We have forgotten as human beings that that's so much a natural part of the process. We celebrate the births and the birthdays, and then we get really sad, and we celebrate the deaths, or we acknowledge somebody's passing. Of course, we grieve the physical loss of somebody. But we forget so often that they're right there. And death is there, and life is here. And they intermingle constantly. And he really just did thank you, David, because you reminded me when we had this conversation this morning that this is why I do what I do. I want people to be able to acknowledge and speak of death with the same joy that they do when they're talking about the birth of a new grandchild. Do you know? When they're excited and celebrating the birthday of a spouse. And that's what was happening there, and that's when you know you've made it. That's when you know you're in that space where you really get it. So for me, in December of 1991, I hadn't quite gotten this yet. I had made it 21 years through my life. I was having a great time. Things were fantastic. I just graduated from college, had my communications and graphic design degree under my belt, and I was sweeping floors for a living. And I left my home to head out for a Christmas party. And about 2 miles from my house, I became that statistic where you hear that most accidents take place within 2 miles of your home. Well, it's true. And I was sitting at a stoplight at a major intersection, waited. My light turned green, and I took off across all these lanes of traffic. And next thing I look over and I realize I'm going to die. A man was barreling towards me. He had run the red light, and I knew it was my time to go. And then I realized I wasn't frightened. There was nothing, it just seemed very normal. It was almost that kind of been there, done that sensation. And I'm looking over and I realized I had a choice. I could stay inside my body and experience the impact and everything that went with that, or I could exit and watch. So which one do you think I chose? I was very wise in that moment when I realized that I didn't need the experience of the deep pain. And so all of a sudden I was surrounded with this buzz, this sound. It was like the drone of a bagpipe. Francis, you'd know that sound, wouldn't you? So there's this buzz and this drone taking place, and I could feel it coursing through me. And what was really strange was I was wearing this jingle bell necklace because it was Christmas, and in Charleston, South Carolina, it was 100 degrees outside in December. I was wearing bright red Bermuda shorts and a Santa Claus t-shirt and a Swarovski crystal jingle bell that my mother had sent me. And it was really strange, like a movie, because as I heard this drone and I exited my body, I'm watching, and talk about a great film effect. Wouldn't this be awesome? You see the bell. Bang. Bang. And I could hear the jingle bell ringing. And then you could see the car smashing in, and it was a T-bone accident where I was driving here and he hit directly in and folded my car and me in half. And next thing I'm looking, and there's still the drone going on, and I'm realizing, oh, how interesting, I'm out of my body. Oh, I still know who I am. That was the first thing that struck me. I still had all of my memories intact. I knew exactly who I was, who I'd been, and I knew things were getting ready to get very interesting. And I'm watching this take place, and I see the car spin, and I see my body's kind of trapped against the seat, and people are starting to congregate and freak out. A girl that I went to college with was a few cars behind me. She ran up and she's like, ah! And I could feel her angst. I wasn't attached to it, but I could feel it. And I certainly had no attachment to my body. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's who I was. And that was it. There was nothing. I wasn't going, oh God, I've got to get back in there. You know, I knew something else was coming. Well, after watching the accident unfold, suddenly the sounds began to change. And we like to call this the music of the spheres. It was the most incredible, indescribable feeling of vibration coursing through my being. And it was suddenly very apparent that I was that sound, that we weren't a separate entity. I was that vibration. I was returning home. I have come to find over the years that I think that as my soul exited the body, what was happening was as I released the confines of the flesh, that the higher vibration then was lifting me home. It's a really nice feeling. And so suddenly I'm now in this new space. And I've moved from the drone, and I've moved from the idea that my body has just died in this accident. And I'm now in this great, beautiful, colorful, again, I said yesterday I probably spent 15 minutes describing how I couldn't describe it. It was magnificent. And it's one of those things that if I could give you one mental image, it hurts to remember. So I try not to focus too much on what I left behind because I've got work to do here. And I think part of the near-death experience is there's a veil of forgetfulness placed on those of us who return, because if you sat and pined for that splendor, your life would be wasted. So, while I was there, it was amazing. And I'm surrounded by color and by sound and by feeling. And I'm suddenly beginning to remember that I'm divine. And I said, oh yeah. And the next thing, oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was a time of oh yes. It was like my amnesia was lifted and I had this sense of complete and utter belonging again. And just about that time, my atmosphere changes in front of me and two beings step forward. This wasn't what they had taught me as a child in Sunday school. It was completely different than what I had been led to believe would happen to me. My dead relatives weren't there, Jesus wasn't there, none of the Buddha wasn't there, nobody. Except for these two beings. This was my experience. So they step out of the atmosphere. They're surrounded by light. They were the light. And they're waiting for me to remember. And they stood very patiently. And I said to my crowd yesterday, do you ever have that feeling when you're in a different place than you're accustomed to seeing somebody and you can't remember their name to save your life? This happens to me as a doctor all the time, where you could have been coming to me for 20 years and I know your name and everything that's ever happened to you when I'm in my office. But in aisle 9 of the frozen food section, I can't remember your name. And it was very much so that sensation. I was going, God, I know you. I know. A little help? A little help? And they just waited. And then it hit me. And I was like, this is true. I've got my own watchdogs. You're my cheerleaders. You're my cheerleaders. You're with me. Yeah. And then this great family reunion took place. And this feeling of having been loved from the beginning of time. So a lot of near-death experience people will come back and they'll talk about the love. And isn't that kind of the most important part of it all? I was very fortunate that I have come back, and because of the work I've chosen to do, or been chosen to do, I have a lot of memories of what took place there. So I write books about it and I do talks about it. But the baseline is the love. That feeling of complete and utter acceptance and belonging, and the sense that everything's okay, that this works out just fine. And I don't care what you believe today or what the people you think should believe this way are believing, or what you used to believe in another lifetime, it all works out okay. And I had a man walk up to me yesterday after the talk and he goes, if everybody gets to go, because everybody gets to go, if everyone gets to go, what's the point? Why even do it? And I went, really? Is that really how you feel? And he goes, well, what's the point? What's the point in the exercise? And I'm like, the whole idea that you get to come here and forget that and find your way back is the ultimate board game. Do you know? And that you get to do it with all these strange preconceived notions, and then you get to do it with the influence. Anybody in here influenced by their parents growing up? Or their parents' choices or mistakes? Anybody have their perceptions of the world formed by adults who are just as crazy as you are? We forget that. The ideas that we have about religion, the ideas that we have about what's proper in a family environment, have all been formulated by people who are screwed up. And that's what makes us so glorious, that we're all beautifully screwed up in some way or another. And I can offer my screwed upness to you, and you can offer your screwed upness to me, and you give me a whole new filter in which to view my life. How could there not be purpose in that? Isn't that awesome? And so, 21 years in my life, all I had been doing to use a lifelong set of gifts, which was I'd always been able to see dead people. I see dead people. Since I was a child. And I'd always been able to have prophetic dreams. I would dream something, it would happen. And I always knew when somebody was going to pass. And I could see the auric field, So this was my life growing up. Try growing up in a Southern Baptist minister's home with these abilities. So we kept them quiet. But by the time I turned 21, all I was doing with these abilities was I was a cheerleader in college. Surprise! And my roommate and I would go, and I would write the score down to the basketball game, and I'd stick it in an envelope and put it in my underwear drawer, and we'd go and we'd cheer at the game. Then we would come back with a group of friends, and we'd open up a beer, and we'd sit down and open the envelope and go, that's so funny. This was the extent of my service to humanity. So, I graduate from college, and 6 months later, I'm driving down the highway on my way to a Christmas party, and the universe intervenes and says, listen here, sunshine, you signed up for something different. And I went, oh yeah, ooh, oh yeah. So it turns out that I had orchestrated with a very divine group of beings that if my free will and my intellect had not allowed me to recognize by the time I was 21 that I had signed up for service, that I came here to help people discover their own divinity, to reconnect with that part of them that has been lost through time. And that if I wasn't doing that, I was going to have a really big in the rear, which was the car accident. So I now spend my life talking to people like you and going, hey, just remember that you're divine and you don't have to die in the car accident. This is what I do. And so this is why I had that experience. And the near-death experience, it's an interesting title. Near death, it is death. Did I die? Yeah. Death is but the doorway. And it's such an integral part of our living world as well. And it was such a great reminder, the very same way that an illness can come into our life, to open our eyes and go, do you think you need to be paying a little bit more attention to yourself and not everybody else's stuff? Anyone ever had that illness? And that's really, really easy to fix. All you have to do is put up your hand, become accountable, take ownership, and you can shift that. I've done it twice. Cancer and I are really good friends. It's such an amazing process. The idea that life and everything it has to offer is right at our fingertips. And we spend so much time in fear of death. And it's true, What do we want to avoid more than anything? Death. And I'm going, okay, I'm not homesick. I'm not trying to clamor my way back, but I don't fear it whatsoever. And the near-death experience for me was not just one of my own personal awakening, but one to remind me that I had signed up for something much bigger. And so I take very seriously, in a humorous kind of way, this task that's in front of me. And I had a lady come and ask me yesterday, she goes, good Lord, you were hit 75 miles an hour. What happened? It broke my neck. My spine looks like a backwards C. I was told I couldn't have children. I have two. I detached a retina, I lost my hearing, I broke my ribs, you name it, I had it. And it was wonderful because it made me a really good doctor. I'm one of those people who you could come into my office and go, I've got this strange feeling like ants are crawling in my face. I'm like, I know that, I have had that. And it's not bonding with the wounds, but it's being able to allow someone to let themselves off the hook because they're petrified, because they'll talk to their friends and go, I've got this symptom. They're like, never had it, don't know. And I go, I've had that. So everyone loved to come to me. So the gift of having a near-death experience isn't just about the enlightenment personally. It's about what you can do to help others find their way back to their own enlightenment. And that's how I've strived to use it. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. And the lady asked me yesterday, all those symptoms, you broke your neck, you detached the retina, you lost your hearing, you smashed your pelvis, all these things. How do you deal with the pain? And I said, I'll tell you exactly how I deal with it, because it's present every single day. And there's a lot of it. And I wake up in the morning and I go, and I stretch a little bit, check in with myself. I say thank you for the fact that I'm still in my body. And I go, is this pain bigger than what I want to accomplish today? And that's how I start my day every day. And I put my feet on the floor, and then I walk into the shower, and I say thank you all the way into the shower, because with every step, I realized that I got the chance to come back into the body. Smashed up and crooked as it is, I got the chance to come back in this body. Now, what would happen if I had chosen not to? Well, I'd have come back in a different body with a different set of circumstances and the same opportunities to find my way back to my own divinity. So I say to myself, well, I'm actually quite comfortable with this person. I've gotten used to my little idiosyncrasies, my little flaws. I've made friends with those things. So I'm going to stay in this one for a while. And that's what would have happened if I had chosen not to come back. And I had a very interesting question posed to me yesterday. I've heard that it's all a trick. That when someone has a near-death experience, it's actually dark forces. And the dark forces are trying to convince them that this is all real, when actually there's evil brewing beneath it. And I was like, wow, whoa. And I'm like, well, unless the dark forces are into spending every waking moment trying to make people feel good about themselves, trying to help them find the pathway back to the divine, trying to help them learn how easy it is to heal the human form, trying to get them to go out and touch as many people with their own personal stories, because isn't it all about sharing our stories with each other? If that's the work of the devil, then I guess I've got horns. But there's absolutely nothing dark or deceptive. And there was a question posed then about, what about people who have a hellish experience? And I went, I believe that there are some who have. It didn't happen to me. But it could be that because the purpose of my near-death experience was to remind me of what I had come back here to do, that hellish aspect wasn't necessary. But for those who experience a hellish aspect to a near-death experience, I believe it's yet another filter in which to pass through, because if you've noticed one common denominator, they've all come back to be able to tell us that there was a hellish experience, right? Because I talk to a lot of dead people for many years now, many, many years, and not once, with my hand on my heart, I'm not just saying it to make you feel good, not one has come back and reported to me that they are living in or experiencing a hellish experience. So it stands to reason to me that the ones who experience the hellish experience are the ones who have to come back still and resolve that conflict. It's just an illusion. They are still under the impression that there's the separation. Because in the end, it's all the one and all the light. Doesn't that make sense? It sounds good to me. So I'm sticking with it. How am I doing on time, Neil? 5 minutes? 50. So if you take one thing from this, it's all good. It's all a great experience. I shared a story yesterday that I won't go into too much detail about, but when my father was passing with Alzheimer's, he'd been a minister for many, many years. He was 85. And he was going through this moment where he was connecting with the other side. And when he made this connection to what he termed the land beyond the river, and this is after months of not even being able to string a sentence together, he pops up and he's like, oh my gosh, I can see it. The land beyond the river, and he sees his mother, and most importantly, he sees his father. His father was a gambling alcoholic horse trader who, by my dad's standards as a Christian, didn't make it. Well, didn't Dad get a big surprise when he's viewing the land beyond the river, and there's his father. He turns to my mother and I, and he says just as clearly and coherently, "I've had it wrong all along. Everybody gets to go. You can't mess this thing up. You can't mess this thing up." The most profound moment in my life. To watch someone who was so dedicated to that one idea. And it's not that Christianity or any religion isn't important to me. It's just it's so small. What I experienced firsthand was so much bigger than that. And let me tell you what, there's no exclusion. Nobody gets left out. So this idea that God did this, or God said this, or God set these parameters, you must be joking. Because the place that I got to go to certainly didn't match what I'd been raised to believe. And wouldn't you think if I'd been suffering from an awful head injury, I'd probably conjure something that was familiar. I conjured something that was so different than what I had ever experienced or been taught to believe, that it made a lasting impression on me that I decided to come back and teach it for the rest of my life. And the best part was that I got enhanced a little bit. I got an upgrade while I was there. So not only could I see and hear dead people, now I could walk up to an individual, put my hand on them, and download their hard drive. How cool is that? I know. So someone could come in and they have an illness, they have an emotional problem, a spiritual problem, and I could touch and basically bypass their BS, the mind chatter, and I get to go, "What's up? Give me the goods. What's happening? Tell me what's going on in this body and how may I assist today?" And trust me, it's not always to get rid of their illness. For a huge amount of people, it's for them to come into this beautiful space of peace and understanding that death is an absolutely normal part of the process. And all of us have to get out of here somehow. Right? But we've come to fear that. We've come to celebrate the people and deify those who passed in one way and then to condemn those who pass in another. That's messed up. I live in a country where suicide, because of Catholicism, is such a heavy presence there, where you could have a guy who would drink himself to death, get a liver transplant, and then go back out and drink himself to death and get a king's burial. George Best, Francis, remember him? One of our big soccer players. And they love George Best. And nothing against George Best, but George Best made some choices. And he drank a lot. And when he got on a waiting list that bypassed a whole lot of other people because of who he was, and he got a new liver, and then he drank himself to death, he got buried with a king's burial. If a kid faces problems and makes a choice and they end up taking their own life, they can't even be buried at the church. That's messed up. Do you think God made those rules, or do you think we made those rules? Exactly. So for me, it's all about getting people, like my conversation with David this morning. Let's talk about death like we talk about toast. It just is. It's just a normal part of the process and not something to be feared. And I want to share with you, if it's okay, I got just a couple minutes?
Yes. 5 minutes. 10.
Oh, I can feel my Father's presence. Western sizzling's waiting. Baptists love their religion, but they love their food a little bit more. I want to leave you with the feeling, because for me, that's what it's all about. We have many lifetimes and many experiences and many people who come in and out, but it's what did we get left with? What was the impression? What was the new tool that we were going to take back with us to our spiritual homes and return and be better the next time? And it's a feeling. It's how we integrate an experience. So if you would, I want to share with you something that happened while I was over. And this is one of the things that I remember so clearly, and a feeling that really left a lasting impression with me. And I'd like to give it to you. So if you close your eyes for me. This actually happened, and this was how they showed me. And I want to share that with you. And we call this the planning room. So I want you to take a nice deep breath in. Clear your mind of any distractions. Express your gratitude for being in lovely company today with everyone who's around you. And I want you to take a little walk back with me. And we're going to a place where you used to be. And to make this place more up close and personal, I want you to decorate it for me. Pick a space. It could be at the beach. It could be in your favorite hotel. It could be your own living room. It's a place where you feel perfectly at peace and comfortable. What does it look like? I want you to really get into that feeling. Are there lights dimmed down? Are the lights on? Or is it decorated with fairy lights and flowers? Are there candles? I want you to see the room as if you're planning a great party. And one of the lost arts of the human experience, is the art of anticipation. We get everything instantly now, and we have forgotten what it feels like to anticipate something fantastic. So I want you to allow yourself to feel anticipation right now. You're excited. You're in this space. You're decorating it. And you're decorating it because friends are coming. We're having a party. Look around your room. Are there any final touches you need to make? If you're in my room, there's a lot of food. Smell the smells. What are your favorite foods? What's in there? What are you serving? Is it savory? See if you can smell it. Sweet? Are you into your cakes? Biscuits? Mine's savory. And I love music, so there's music in the background for me. What kind of music can you hear? You're creating your perfect atmosphere. And the best part about this party, that's different than other parties that you might have been to, is that every single person who's coming is someone that you want to be there. Because as we all know, sometimes we can go to family gatherings, and there's that one aunt, or that cousin, there's always the one. Everyone coming to your party is someone you have personally invited, someone you want to be there. And feel the anticipation starting to rise. You're getting excited. Your room is decorated, you have your sounds, your smells, you're comfortable, and you're excited. There's your first guest. And you open the door and you are ecstatic to see this person. And behind this person is 10 more, and 10 more again. And everyone just keeps getting better and better, and you embrace. And as you embrace, you realize, oh, hang on a second, I'm not in my physical body, I'm in my energy body. Have a look at yourself. See the magnificence. See how much you're glowing. See the light. Look how beautiful you are. And feel that embrace that only one soul can make to another. Feel that. Allow yourself to be in that space. And each one comes in the door and you laugh and you're excited. There's no sense of angst, anxiety, need to perform. This is just good fun, and you're so happy. All of a sudden your room really starts to fill up, and you're looking around and you're like, wow, these beings mean so much to me. Because now all of a sudden it dawns on you that this party you've been planning, this is your party preceding the life that you're in right now. These are all of the individual souls who are going to come in and play some role. Oh, there was my bus driver when I was in grade school. There's the one who's going to be my mom. There's my ex-husband. Oh, there's my dog. Oh. All of these beautiful energies are coming into this room to see you off. This is just before you're ready to slip into the life that you're leading right now. The very same one that you've been a little bit hard on, that you've judged, that you've not set boundaries on, and the very same one that you've also come to love and accept. Every individual in this room is here to support the experience that you've chosen for yourself in this lifetime. And it feels so good to know that you're so loved. And you're looking around, and there's so many dynamic beings in this room that the room is literally glowing. And you can feel it inside of you. And all of a sudden you look across the room, and there's a little light there that's a bit brighter than all the rest. And you beeline for this light. And you can hardly contain your excitement. And you look at this soul, and this soul looks at you, and you embrace as only souls can. You're so happy. Oh God, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you. I've got a question for you. Are you sure? And you say, yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Are you going to remember me? Of course I'm going to remember you. I've asked you to play the most difficult role in my life. I've asked you to come in and convince me that I am less than. To convince me that I am not worthy. To convince me that I am not pure love and light. I could only ask you to do this for me because you love me more than all the rest. Okay. I'm going to do this because I love you. But promise me one thing. When it gets really bad, when it gets really tough, when you're at the depths of despair, promise me you won't forget this moment. And you go, no way. No way could I forget this moment. But I bet some of you have. And this feeling grows inside of you where you recognize, I already am that which I seek. And you embrace this soul and you express your gratitude and you look across your planning room as you're planning the life you're leading now. And you get the chance to say thank you to each and every individual soul who has come in and played 5 minutes or 50 years in your life. And feel what that feels like right now. No walls, no barriers, no keeping up with the Joneses, no pretenses. You get to express your heartfelt gratitude in that divine, unconditional, and all-loving space. Feel that feeling right now. I want you to take a deep breath. And remember that you can connect with that feeling anytime you want to. It just takes you stepping out of your hectic life and allowing yourself to connect for just a few minutes. And it's also a little reminder to you that nobody here can hurt you. Nobody. They can mess with your body. They can try to mess with your mind. But who you really are is divine love and wisdom. Don't ever, ever forget that. Now, gently open your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. And for those of you who haven't died and come back, I hope I can leave you with the impression that, oh, I don't have to die and come back to get this. I did, because I didn't get it. But now I do. And I make a commitment to you standing here that I will continue to go forth into the world and let people off the hook. Because I am no guru, and I am not somebody who's more unique or dynamic than you are. I'm a window washer. because life means that sometimes our windows get dirty and we can't see out. We forget that behind that window we already are that which we seek. We're divine love and wisdom in action. Living love, as David said. I love that. And my job, my charge, my responsibility, spit on that cloth and wipe the window clean so you can already see what was in front of you. I'm not here to make you something that you aren't, because you're already perfection. I'm just here to wipe life's muck from the window so that you can see out again. And I thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. This has just been absolutely fantastic. And well done on the space that you've created here. It is a most welcoming and just, it's like being in the womb. It's just fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I have a note here to please name the man that I saw yesterday whose photo is at the front. It was Paul Solomon, who I didn't know, unfortunately, but now I do. At my talk. He came to my talk. At the ARE, yeah.
For those of you who are here who may not know, Paul Solomon is the founder of this Fellowship of the Inner Light. So glad he came to your talk. Thank you so much for your talk. I'm sure he was looking good.